Hey everyone, we are here today to speak to you about how to create longevity in a sales organization and why that's important. So picture this, you start the year, you have 30 AEs, yet by the end of that same year, you lose 10 of them. 32%, that is the average attrition for AEs in SaaS organizations. What if you could bring that down to 20%? What about 10%? How much more could you accomplish? My name is Valerie Avila, and I'm Director of Sales at JustWorks.
And I'm Robert Lopez. I'm a CRO at JustWorks. JustWorks is an HR tech company based in New York City. And we're really excited to be here today. But before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit about who we are. So I hired Val here back in 2014 as one of the first AEs at the company. JustWorks, to give you a perspective, has only been around about 11 years. So combined, we have almost 2 decades of experience at JustWorks alone. And in a world today where you have turnover, average VP of sales at 18 months, average sales manager and AE in a similar ballpark, we're here to talk about longevity, and we've done it here at JustWorks. And hopefully we can spend a little bit of time giving you some tactics that you can implement as soon as next week. When we started back in 2014, the business had about 30 customers. We're over 10,000 today. We had tens of thousands of revenue. Today we have hundreds of millions in revenue. And so we've been a part of that, sitting in the seat that you all sit in today and punching through that first 10 million, 20 million, 100 million, 200 million. And some of these tactics I think will be really valuable in terms of how you can think about building an everlasting culture in your business. And when we reflected back on thinking about all the different ingredients, like what has led to our success, what has helped us get to the scale that we are today, one thing really stuck out, and that was that aspect of longevity. Because when you think about that number, 32%, it's like, would you rather be pushing a boulder uphill, or would you rather be having some tailwinds and thinking about how to build a meaningful culture over the long run? And so we have 2 themes today that we're going to talk through, and Val's going to hit on the first one.
All right, so those 2 themes are a sense of ownership that you want to curate within your organization and investing in team development. So if we think about a sense of ownership, Dale Carnegie has a study that shares employees that feel connected, that feel that sense of ownership to their organization, they tend to stay for longer periods of time. They have more productivity in less time, and that overall reduces turnover costs for the business. But how do you build that? A lot of that stems with education, right? So you want to educate your people. How many of your sales orgs, how many of your AEs know how your business operates? And I mean really operates. How about how businesses operate in general? When you give out equity, that's some level of sense of ownership, but feeling like an owner is a lot more than that. So early on, when I was an AE, Rob pulled me aside and broke down the concept of unit economics. I was an AE, again, what did that have to do with my day-to-day? Nothing, right? Like, it didn't really drive much of an impact in what I was actually doing in terms of closing business. However, it helped me gain perspective on the building blocks that it takes to build a successful and healthy business. And it allowed me to co-create OKRs alongside Rob. And all of a sudden, I felt like an owner. So you want to build the skills of your team and educate them on how to be successful within the skills that they need for their day-to-day. But on top of that, you always want to be thinking about how do you invest in their growth and in their knowledge as an owner. On top of when you do that, 2 things happen. Employees feel more invested, and you start to build this bridge. People start to see the business as not just in their day-to-day, but how other teams are connected, and that starts to foster a connective tissue within the organization. So if you think about the company as a body, you have your bones, you have your muscles. If they're not connected, you don't go anywhere. Your departments are your bones and your muscles. As you're scaling, you go through rapid growth, people are heads down, silos are created, and all of a sudden your teams are working against each other. If you're not taking time to build them together, bring them together, that's an opportunity cost for the business. Isaac, our founder, had brought us all together to start this concept of a war room. Now, what is a war room? It was all of us getting together to talk through blockers, inefficiencies, structure plans, and actual different communication channels to chart a path forward. That started to bridge more of that connection across the teams and started to create that connective tissue. All of a sudden, your bones, your muscles, they were working together and we could run faster. And on top of that, we would celebrate when employees went above and beyond from their scope to contribute in a bigger way to the business. So that started to build that cohesion, and we started to accelerate that growth, and all of that started to make everybody feel like they were part of a greater whole and created a sense of ownership. So build skills beyond what you need to know for your jobs, teach about the business. And on top of that, start that war room, build that connective tissue, right? Reward that moment when that happens.
So if that's how you kick it off, right? You got to have that sense of ownership, and that's the foundation that you really need to lie down. But once you have that, it's important that you make sure that people are running in the right direction. You got to make sure that you educate them. You got to make sure that you're really focused on instilling the right skills and where they're going to go. But once you have the right team, like, let an athlete run. Like, let them go crazy and help them get out of the way. And so one example, so Val had an idea, the New York tech ecosystem back in 2015 was a fraction of what it was today. And so there was female entrepreneurs that Val had met in terms of networking. And so what if we were to do a conference and an overall event focused on just women, like a women entrepreneurial group? It'd be good for them. It'd help them build a community. It'd be good for JustWorks in terms of helping us acquire new customers. And so we let her have it. We gave her a budget. We let her run with it. We put her in touch with a few investors. And a few years later, we had one of the marquee franchises that has helped not only hundreds of women entrepreneurs meet one another and network, but has also brought dozens of new customers to JustWorks. And so when you actually have those folks that really are invested and have built that foundation, like, let them run with it and get out of their way. The second one is one that's extremely near and dear to my heart, and that's really all about aligning incentives and in terms of hiring internally, that balance of hiring internally and externally. So there's no rule here, but I'm a big believer that you want to have about 60% of your leadership from internal promotes and about another 30 to 40% external. Now, internally, you got to make sure that they're tied to the culture of the business. They're ensuring that they're bought into the long-term vision. But if you're not bringing folks in outside of the organization, you're always never going to get that outside perspective. And one of the more controversial things, if any investors are here in the room, we started to pay our account executives on their net book of business. So net of churn, net of retention, net of expansion over long periods of time. And that, coupled with an AE progression plan that was highly quantifiable with very quantifiable metrics and scope that would expand in terms of tenure, what that has enabled us to do is to align incentives so they're only bringing on high quality business for JustWorks over long periods of time. And so now we have AEs that have been with us 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and you see increased productivity as they grow. And if another company is going to go in and try to offer them $50K, another $75K from an OTE perspective, it's really easy, right? It's a very competitive talent environment. And what we've found is by paying them on their net book of business, it's increased our employee retention and decreased that overall turnover. Because at the end of the day, what they're getting is an incredible paycheck on an annual basis. Now, we only do it assuming they continue to hit quota, but it's something that I would encourage you to think about, although it would be a little bit of a battle in the boardroom. But it's something that you should really, really think about to drive those long-term incentives outside of traditional compensation plans and outside of traditional equity plans. And so Val's going to close it out with a few summary slides.
Yeah, so what do we want you to take from today? Building longevity in a sales organization and in an organization in general, it takes intentional steps. Ultimately, you want to curate this sense of ownership. That means you educate beyond the skills of the role. You educate on every aspect of the business. Help them feel like a part of what they're shaping and building, and they're going to feel that sense of ownership. Build and maintain connective tissue across the organization. Launch the war room. Start to reward and recognize moments where people go beyond the scope of their responsibility to really contribute to the business in a meaningful way. Number 2, invest in that team development. Rob called it. You got to just get out of the way. If you're hiring great people and giving them the tools to be successful, let them do their thing. They're going to step up. And then lastly is striking that balance between internal promotion and external hiring. And let me tell you, this guy over here, he hired somebody for a job that I wanted, but I'm better for it because I actually was given the opportunities to step up while still learning from somebody that had the skills that I didn't have yet when I was starting that journey into management. And striking that balance can be tough, but it is critical in order to ensure the longevity of that organization. So if you're able to start to implement some of these things, and hopefully maybe you can even implement them tomorrow, you'll be well on your way to making that 32%, maybe even 10%, which is actually where we've been the past few years. If you want to learn more about this or talk about JustWorks, we're going to be at booth 211. So come and swing by and pick up some swag. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Have a good one.